In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about another Bears victory. We'll be talking Blackhawks and more. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Season is about to start, so make sure you head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, my friend, how are you doing?
I am doing just swell. Just swell. Waking up and watching football at 8 in the morning was totally worth it because I was actually really dreading this game, despite the fact that the Bears got to England way before the Jaguars did. Things get weird when you play international games. The Jaguars have been playing these games for a while. They play another one next week. It kind of felt like, okay, this is going to be a big curve for this team, especially with rookies. But my pessimism was proven to be way, way wrong. And it feels nice.
Yeah, and you know what? It started off not great.
No.
And I will admit I got a little nervous right off the bat.
So did I.
Um, because defensively the Jaguars were able to move the ball with the pass, and the Bears couldn't do anything the first few drives, like literally nothing.
Yeah, three and out the opening drives, which we've seen before from this offense when things go slow. And then when they find the tempo and Caleb finds the rhythm and the run game gets going, then good things happen.
Yeah, and it's funny. You and I have talked for several weeks now about how Luke Getsy was terrible. Nobody's saying he wasn't terrible, but when he scripted those first 15 plays, you're like, okay, we saw good things. And I believe he scripted plays for the second half as well. And we saw start of the first half, start of the second half, things went fine. And it was after that, everything went off the rails. And we're
Hmm.
like, with Shane Waldron, we're not seeing that. And then it comes out that he wasn't scripting plays and just made a lot of sense. And he scripted plays for this game, but boy, were they terrible scripts.
Yeah, it just was a lot of blah early on. And kind of like the Rams game, you got a little fortunate. You bent but didn't break on the opponent's opening drive because, like the Rams game, they were passing downfield. Now, in this game, you have a really banged up secondary, a very, very banged up secondary. You didn't have Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon, who was all over the place. Obviously, went down a little later. He was there to start the game, but not having Jaquan Brisker obviously is a big loss. And they were just picking on the secondary early. And
Tyreek
you're
Stevenson was also out.
it's yes, Tyreek Stevenson was also out too. So they were kind of getting bullied a little bit, and it's a good thing that they didn't catch that opening touchdown pass. It was in his hands, but and I know it was defended, but still, he could have easily caught that ball in the end zone. But they didn't. They settled for three, and then kind of like what we've seen in a lot of these games, once the Bears get going, the defense gets going. And the defense wasn't perfect throughout the day. There were still moments where the secondary was getting picked on pretty hard. And there were a few times where you could have seen the Jacksonville Jaguars score a touchdown or move downfield more had they not dropped a pass, or if Trevor Lawrence didn't just underthrow that one ball that hit Edwards in the tushy. But they still made the big plays. And not only did the defense make the big plays with the turnovers, one of which got overturned, which was bullshit, but They made those plays. They forced the fumbles, they got the picks on several drives. The Bears turned those into touchdowns. And that is something that we have not seen enough of in our lifetimes. How many games, how many times have we seen the Bears recover a fumble at the 40, get an interception midfield, and get somewhat into enemy territory, and either they have to punt or they have to settle for a field goal? You turned those turnovers into 6+1, and that was huge because you really stomped on the Jaguars' throats.
Yeah, that was key. Um, that was absolutely key. We saw them attack at, once they found that footing offensively, they really, for the most part, kept the foot on the gas. And
Yeah, the whole game.
yeah, um, but uh, it was a really good game. And Jacksonville, we can crap all over Jacksonville, but offensively, they've they've been running the ball really well. And I think that caused a lot of people, that were rooting for the Bears, to have some level of angst because the Bears have had a little bit of an Achilles heel defensively, stopping the run and not, getting run all over, but they were susceptible to big plays in the run. And I think that must have been a big focus for them this week because uh, they really, really worked at that run stopping.
They did. And it also helps too when you take a lead and you keep adding on and you force the Jaguars to throw downfield. But yes, you're right. They did a much better job of that today. And you look too at what the Bears did defensively as well. Even though they got, you know, picked apart a little bit in certain points of the game, they're a really good tackling team right now. They are really good at making tackles. Guys aren't slipping away from them like we've seen in so many years past. They are very, very good at making the tackles. And I want to say this too. And I've said this many times, I'll say it again. TJ Edwards might be one of the most underrated signings the Bears have made over the past few years. That forced fumble he had looked effortless. He just swarmed, just kind of bear hugged him, just punched the ball out, and easy fumble recovery. And that right there already took like most of the wind out of the Jaguars' sails because the Jaguars started the second half with the ball. And at the time, it was still a reasonably close game. And if they score, could be a very different ball game. The fact that they came away with that turnover right then and there, that really helped shift more momentum in your favor.
Right. Um, and just everything seemed to go well. And um, it didn't hurt anything that Jacksonville really shot themselves in the foot a lot.
They did. Like I said, they dropped some passes in the end zone. You had that missed throw by Trevor Lawrence deep. That was a really underthrown ball. Obviously, Lawrence got picked off when the Bears were just kind of going. But consider this too. There was a point in the game when it was 21-3. Jacksonville scored a touchdown. And you're still up by two scores, but there was a lot of game left. And there were multiple times on the next drive where it looks like they had you stopped. So all of a sudden, they scored, they stopped you, you'd be punting. You feel like there was a bit of a momentum shift. But to your point, what did they do? They shot themselves in the foot. They had a couple of penalties that kept drives alive, but the Bears finished it. They ran with DeAndre Swift. He had several massive runs that drive, and it ended with a touchdown. So any momentum the Jaguars could have potentially taken, they gave it back to the Bears, and the Bears took full advantage. So yes, you can say the Jaguars made a lot of mistakes today because they did. But what the Bears did was capitalize on every single one. And that's, like I said, that is just something we have not seen the Bears do consistently in my freaking lifetime.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so uh, one thing that I really liked in this game is we continue to see the progression of Caleb Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's huge. We've never seen this. We've never had this. And I'm shaking with excitement because we've never had this before. We've had quarterbacks that we were excited about, but at this point we were already making excuses. We're seeing what he's able to do and what not able to do, but like it's not much, but we're seeing all these progression steps. You see him scan across the field to look for, his different reads, and when they're not there, he's scanning back across for a dump off. Um, you're seeing him control that offense and call out the the blitzes and change plays up. It's it's really cool to watch. And sure, he's still missing some throws, but he's getting on the same page with the receivers more and more and more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there are several favorite plays from Caleb Williams today. One of them was the first touchdown to Cole Kmet, and you got to give Cole Kmet a lot of credit. He was wide open in the middle of the field, broke a tackle like a number one tight end. So any slandering of that I had back in the day, Cole Kmet, I'm sorry. You continue to just grow on me every day. But Caleb Williams faked to his left and his right. And then he threw that right down the middle, and it ended up being a touchdown. The quickness of that, it doesn't seem like much because Cole Kmet was wide open and he was the one that broke the tackle. But for a rookie quarterback in the NFL to do that so quickly, doesn't that say something?
Oh, absolutely. Um, I know I don't want to do the comparison thing, but I know a lot of people in the national media are like, oh, you know, Jaden Daniels is looking like he was the steal of the draft and he's the best quarterback. And I'm not taking anything away from him. He's looked really good.
Yeah,
I
Jane
wa
Daniels is going to be a
I
beast.
I watched him today and I'm watching more advanced metrics, and there's a lot of things that he's not doing that Caleb Williams does. And part of it is there, if you look, Jaden Daniels is really only using half the field. They're calling up plays where everything is on one side of the field. They're cutting it in half to limit the number of reads he has. And they're using a lot of college schemes to make it easier for him. And again, not taking anything away from him. Caleb, they're not doing that. Caleb is using that whole field. And that's that's important.
It is. It is. I also want to mention this too. What have we been kind of waiting for this season? It's been the connection with Keenan Allen. Today we finally saw it. Two touchdown passes, and I would say the two best touchdown passes he had today, just in terms of the quality of the throw, were the two to Keenan Allen. The first one was an absolute laser right down the middle. And Caleb threw several of those today. He had some really tight windows right down the middle of the field, and he just threw an absolute dart to either move the chains or throwing to Keenan Allen in the end zone. And then the second one, that fade towards the edge of the end zone, it was an elite throw and an elite catch. Like that is what you brought in Keenan Allen for. And today we saw him earn his paycheck with the Bears.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, he definitely earned that paycheck, and it's um it's really important for the development of Caleb Williams to keep building that rapport, because Keenan Allen is going to be really important, especially when we uh we get to the um the later portion where we're facing much tougher teams, much tougher defenses. having that safety valve that is able to just run routes and get open is going to be super important. And um, having that uh, rapport built with him is going to be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And he didn't get a touchdown. He didn't exactly light up the score sheet, but you saw some nice connections to Roma Dunze, which is also very nice. But I mean, really today, in terms of receiving, it was the Cole Kmet Keenan Allen show. And this is the first time the Bears have won a game in which Cole Kmet had multiple touchdown catches. In all the others, they lost. One of them being that infamous Broncos game last year. So the Bears beat that bugaboo, two touchdown passes to Cole Kmet, and they got a win. And that was a nice throw, too. The second throw to Cole Kmet, just, hey, lollipop it to your guy. He's the biggest guy out there. He's open. Simple. Got it to him. Boom. Not overcomplicating it. Because sometimes I think Bears quarterbacks of the past would try to overcomplicate that thing. There was one other play, too, I wanted to talk about with Caleb Williams. And it might not seem like much, but bear with me here. If you remember in the final minutes of the game, I mean, it was 35-16, so it wasn't as consequential, but it was 6 minutes to go. It was 4th and 3. And instead of just punting it, they passed on 4th and 3.
Mhm.
And Caleb just that quick dart to get the first down. They trusted him to execute that. I thought that was kind of cool. Like I said, it probably didn't mean anything at the end of the day, but the fact that you got that first down and you shaved off another 3 minutes of the clock to not give Jacksonville any sort of hope, it was just something I noted.
Yeah, and I want to give props to Cole Kmet. He's becoming one of the best tight ends in the league.
Yeah, he's looking real good.
I mean, he's a good blocker. He's a good pass catcher. He runs good routes. He finishes, and he long snaps when you need him.
Yeah, you know what's a really good thing is that didn't have to matter. That
Oh,
really didn't have to matter. You didn't drive down in a tie game with 3 minutes left to try to kick a field goal.
yeah, that would have been, uh, I think Bears fans would have collectively pooped our pants.
Yeah, absolutely. And he did fine enough on the extra points. I think the blocked field goal was a little high. It wasn't awful, wasn't great. And then, they eventually got their hand and tipped it, but it didn't matter. But give Cole Kmet credit. He went out there, did what he could. Did you see the quote by him talking about that?
No, I didn't.
Well, I got to pull it up because you're going to laugh really, really hard. So, obviously, they started the game with their long snapper and then he got hurt. So, here's what happened. So, Cole Kmet is on the sideline with Richard Hightower. Hey, Cole, Scott's hurt. Kmet, Tyler Scott, Hightower, no, Scott Daly. You have to long snap. Oh, oh shit.
That's funny.
uh, but hey, like I said, there was no consequence. No consequence. Though the block field goal cost me some fantasy points on one of my teams, but I think I'm going to win that game anyway. So I think it's okay. Just would have been nice for Cairo to have another field goal, but whatever.
Um, let's see what else with this team. Offensively, things are cooking, uh, pretty well once they get going, but it's taking too long to get into that groove, and it's frustrating because once we get into the heart of that second half of the season, it's it's going to be brutal. Like, you
You
know,
can't do that. You
I
can't
mean,
do that against these division teams.
yeah, look at Minnesota. Look at all of the division opponents. This division is ridiculous. Did you see all of the division scores today?
Oh yeah, I mean they're dominating. I mean the Packers took it to the Cardinals and Detroit. That team is so good. Also, haha, Cowboys, you're absolute dumpster fire right now, but man, Detroit, they got to be the favorites to win the Super Bowl outside of the Chiefs. That
Ah,
team is insanely good.
Aiden Hutchinson got carved off.
Don't look at the pictures. Anyone if anyone listening hasn't seen it, don't. Just trust me, don't. You don't want to look.
That's gonna hurt.
But that offense, that line, Dave Montgomery, he is playing as good as he ever has. And I'm fine with DeAndre Swift right now. I get you don't pay running backs. I get that he left on his own accord, whatever. But I never really thought I'd miss him as much as I do because he is just lighting it up in Detroit. And their play calling is so good. That team is stacked.
They are. Um, but I mean, you know what? Offenses can't keep performing like this. You look and it's the Packers aren't going to keep performing like this. The Vikings aren't going to keep performing like this. The Lions, the Bears, none of them are going to keep throwing up 40, 30, 40 points a game. It's just not sustainable. And, a lot of this comes from, you look, and really, I don't care who they do it against. It's just what happens when they play the Bears. And, you know, uh, a lot of those big plays are probably not going to be available against the Bears. Um, when you look at the Lions, they're just not, they're going to have to be patient and dink and dunk and dink and dunk. And if in 2 weeks or 3 weeks we have a full healthy defensive uh backfield and we keep playing the run like we did today, we're gonna put the pressure on teams.
Yeah, and I think too, there is going to be the fact that things are going to change for better, for worse over weeks. I mean, look at the Bears. They are going into the bye at a really good time because Jaquan Brisker got the concussion, Tyreek Stevenson is hurt, and now hopefully Kyler Gordon isn't hurt too bad because he is really important. Like I said earlier, when you started this game, Kyler Gordon was everywhere. He gets to the ball so quickly, and you're going to need him against those good games. So at least he has 2 weeks to start healing up. You need him in those games. You simply do.
I talked about the depth of this defensive backfield, and we saw it. We were down three starters in the defensive backfield and contained a really good offense. Um, Jalen Jones stepped in and played really nice, and uh, Hicks got the starting spot with Brisker out, and he played really well.
He looked good today. You got to give him a lot of credit. He looked good.
I'm love seeing that because I scouted him when he was at Cal and the Bears drafted him. And I was like, man, I think this is going to be a steal. I think he's really good. And that first year, he looks brutal. And I think it just took some time to learn the defense and get acclimated to the league. I think he's a really good safety. Um, I mean, I don't want to lose Jaquan Brisker for a long time, and hopefully he's back for their next game. But Hicks was a good replacement, and then Byard played really well.
His last few weeks have been quite good. And those are the kind of games that you love to see when you get the pickup of a guy like him. Obviously, he's very experienced, and you see why. I think, wasn't he leading like that position in interceptions over the past several years? So he got one last week against the Carolina Panthers. So if those guys keep playing well and can hold down a fort, if the others are out for a short time, that's fine. You just want to be all systems go when you play the important games.
Right. And hopefully, like you said, this buy is coming at a good time. Um, because Brisker should be back. Uh, Hopefully Kyler Gordon is back because he's been playing like all pro level in that slot position. Um, Zach Pickens should be back. Hopefully Ryan Bates is back. And honestly, is the long snapper doesn't matter because I think Patrick Scales is supposed to be back too, or should be back or close to it, which
Yeah,
would make that transition a lot easier because they would have to figure out what they were going to do. And if one gets hurt and the other one's healthy, then problem solved.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Speaking of which, you want to talk a little about the offensive line.
Always.
So we saw some good, we saw some not so good, but I didn't watch today puking from the first minute to the very end. Again, there were times in the third quarter when it started to break down a bit, but there were also times when things held up decently. And what was nice too was when there were times Caleb Williams was scanning the field and no one was open, there was the hole for Caleb to run. And that was another element of Caleb's game today that I should bring up as well. He was very good on the ground today. He ran well, he ran smart. He didn't try to do too much, but when he had the opportunity and the opportunity called for it, he took off and he was able to get some space. So it's not like he was running for his life the whole game, and it's not like the offensive line was perfect, but I at least thought you saw some good play against a pretty good D line. And I'll ask you this too. Does Coleman Shelton look like over the last few games he's playing better? Because it seems like I'm not saying he's playing great, but I see a little bit of improvement.
Not enough to save his job after the season.
Oh, I'm
Definitely.
not saying that, but
But it's he's also not facing a nose tackle that's a beast. And that's been his that's been the problem. Like he's a very smart player. He knows the play calls and what to do, and but he's just not physically strong enough to drive it. So you still see that pocket, collapse in, and Caleb having to run backwards to roll out because what's happening is the pocket, goes into like a U shape, and in theory, your quarterback should be able to step up in the pocket when the edge rushers loop around, and he should be able to step up. And he's never been able to do that. It's if you notice, he always has to roll backwards to go to bypass the edge rushers and then roll out to the left or right because the pocket collapses in the center. And that's all Coleman Shelton are, a good part of it. Um, It'll be interesting to see what they do over the next 2 weeks because now would be the time to make that change. Is I have a feeling they're not going to go Doug Kramer, but is Ryan Bates healthy enough?
well, I think if Ryan Bates is healthy, isn't that their ideal guy? Isn't that what they got him for?
That is, and now that I think you're starting to figure out options for the guard position because Nate Davis was another healthy scratch. Um,
Yeah, huh?
I have a feeling that if Ryan Bates is healthy, at least, that shoulder, he may not be healthy enough to play center, But if he's healthy enough to play guard between uh, you know, your current set of guards, I wouldn't be shocked if they just cut ties with Nate Davis at this point.
I mean, if you're healthy scratching the guy the way you are, when you're already banged up on the line, which is why at least if Coleman Shelton isn't playing terrible and you kind of switch things around and he's not the guy you have to rely on, I would feel even more comfortable with that at this point because I just can't rely on Nate Davis at all. Can anybody really justify relying on Nate Davis at all at this point?
No, I mean, there's clearly something going on, but I mean, they're not happy with him. He's not working hard when he's in there. At best, he looks okay. It's not the guy we paid, you know, $30 million contract to.
No, you signed him to be not necessarily a Pro Bowler, but legit.
We signed him for the being a road grader in that run game, and he's just not.
No, no, he's not.
Yeah, it's really frustrating trying to watch because he's just out of sorts.
And when he was playing, because he came from Jacksonville, yes? That was his
Tennessee.
Tennessee, right? Tennessee. He was pretty good there. And when they signed him, it was like, okay, this is a guy, a legit guy, and it for many reasons just hasn't worked out. But if you can at least try to patch things together to where it's not as imperative, it still worries me though. I mean, like I said, you're going to be facing some much better teams going forward. And today, like I said, it wasn't all great, but I don't think it was all bad either. But like I said, you're
It's
not facing the very best.
it started off a little rough.
It did.
Um, and it improved. Like I was legit worried. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be how this game goes. Um,
Yeah, I wasn't huge on the matchup. Our O line versus their D line. It's not you're not facing the greatest pass rush in the NFL, but it's better than the Panthers, that's for sure.
well, the Panthers had the worst D line. I'm hoping that we start to see this line gel a little bit with the guys that are in there. Um, and if that's the case, then maybe we start to see some improvement. I'm not expecting anything good, but if we can find acceptable, that's going to be huge. We're not,
Yeah,
we're not going to be the Lions here, but if we can at least be acceptable, I'm okay.
yeah, for sure. I mean, the nice thing is you have a very smart quarterback. Though he's still a rookie, he's like you said, he's doing things we haven't seen. And while it's not perfect yet, and there are plenty of things for him to work on, I trust the IQ so much more than I trust so many other guys in the past. Like the IQ is off the charts. Again, reminder, regardless of the opponent, he is a rookie in the National Football League. How will it translate to better teams? We'll see. Because he's going to face some pretty scary teams. That's a whole other level. But as a rookie in the NFL, regardless of the opponent, you're seeing some really nice things from him. And he made one notable mistake today. And you and I can both agree, and Caleb will be the first one to tell you, that was all on him.
That, yeah, that was so the play we're talking about was um that there was a deep throw. He had DJ Moore wide open and he just missed that throw. He hung it and he needed it was NFL wide open. Uh there was a guy that was coming, but he needed to fire it in there and with some heat to get it in there. If he had that'd have been a touchdown. Instead, it was an interception. Um, it was a good play design. I'll give Waldron that, but um, it was just a bad throw. And when DJ sees those underthrown, he's got to play defender and go back and at least try to knock the ball
Knock it
down
away.
or make it a 50-50 ball.
Yeah. And I don't know if you listened to the interview on the field right after the game. Here's Caleb Williams. He just threw for 4 touchdowns in Europe in his sixth NFL game?
Sixth NFL game.
Yeah. And the first thing he said is, I was pretty mad about the interception. The first thing he brought up was the mistake and how he needed to be better at that. But Caleb Williams, after throwing that brutal pick, first of all, the defense stood high. They made it not count towards
Oh yeah.
anything. They got the stop. They didn't score. But they come right back. He comes right back and they score a touchdown. He didn't let that get to him. He came right back. It may not seem like a big deal if you're Patrick Mahomes, who makes a rare mistake, or Josh Allen, but when you're a rookie quarterback for the Chicago Bears, who we've seen make 10 trillion mistakes and just fall like a Jenga tower, it's
Like
different
the
than what we've
Jenga
seen here in
tower.
Chicago. Just so good for him on that. And you know what? Those are going to happen. Those types of moments are those moments where you go, yep, that was a rookie quarterback in the NFL misjudging how to throw the ball in that particular play. And he knew it right away. He knew it. You throw a zip towards the pylon, that's a touchdown. But it didn't get to him. He came back, he used it as motivation. And that's the attitude I hope we keep seeing from him.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to see Shane Waldron be smarter with some of these play calls. I think he's getting a little predictable. I think he's getting a little conservative. I think he's being conservative. I think he's being predictable. I think he really needs to understand who the personnel is on this team. And I think he's done a lot better job of working the offense through the three big wide receivers and not through the other wide receivers.
Yeah,
Is
they're not targeting Gerald Everett and Carter more than Roma Dunze and DJ Moore.
I think he's doing fine with that, but I think he needs to be more aggressive on some of his play calls, more creative, mix things up more. Um, don't don't start off the game with like two straight runs from the shotgun and then set yourself up on the first drive with a third and long. Like it just is you see DeAndre Swift is really good when you get him some space. You you got to do that. You got to work that space in, and I don't understand why it's been so hard um, to uh, for him to understand that.
Well, though to his credit, I'll say this. He's done much better incorporating DeAndre Swift in what he's good at these past few weeks because DeAndre Swift has had several really good games in a row. He was good against the Rams. That's kind of when he broke out with the Bears. Had a good week last week, and this week had some really key runs to help stomp on the throat. But I do agree with you on those opening drives. Is it whack for me to suggest, hey, why not try a play action pass to start? Is that crazy?
I think he should.
You think you're going to run the ball, pull it back? Your guys get behind the linebackers, you try to hit an open guy? Why not try it? That's my take, at least.
I mean, I think he has to. I think he's just got to start being more creative. Um, we heard was it Kurt Warner say that Mike Martz before playoff games would give him the first play of the game 3 days in advance so he could visualize any scenario that would um that could occur and work through it. So when he runs that play, no matter what they do, he's prepared. And I want to see that coming from uh, the Bears is, not necessarily 3 days in advance, but work through those plays. And so Caleb is ready and everybody knows what's coming. And you're not, you know, uh, you've you go out there because the Bears have been at their best offensively when they're in rhythm and
Hmm.
uh, when they are um, moving quickly. When they go into the long huddle and take time to get those plays in, that's when you see them, trip and stumble. Is when they're in rhythm and they're moving fast, you see everything start to gel.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen some really nice rhythm with the no huddle, and you got to give a lot of that to Caleb Williams. Got to give a lot of credit to him on that.
Absolutely.
Again, a rookie is doing this. You are you are at your best in a no huddle tempo offense with a rookie quarterback.
Um, I want to see this keep improving. Um, but I was watching the Washington game. I don't know if you watched that game.
Just the beginning.
What's funny is Tony Romo kept calling them the Redskins like 4 different times. Called them the Redskins. Um, but
I'm not surprised. He would also, could you imagine if he called the ALCS Yankees versus Indians? He'd be like Indians, Guardians. Kind of funny.
um, but uh, they were talking about Jaden Daniels that him and Cliff Kingsbury, um, they they utilize like a VR headset. So they put the plays in with a virtual defense, and he's able to work more reps without having the rest of the team there. So he apparently gets to the building at like 6 a.m. every day and works through plays and out over and over and over again with the VR headset to get more reps in. And I wonder if I mean, I would be shocked if the Bears didn't do something like that, but I, I don't know how important that is or how I guess prevalent that is in the NFL.
Right.
But if they're not doing that with Caleb Williams, um, I'm going to be very disappointed because I that sounds like it's really huge
Yeah, absolutely.
because that I mean that's a lot of what these rookies is getting those reps in. And if you can do it without the risk of injury, and not in a game scenario, I think that's really a cool thing.
I agree. I agree.
And there was one thing I forgot to talk about last week, and it was uh the hit that Jaquan Brisker got the concussion on.
Hmm.
That was um it was actually uh the Panthers player that initiated the contact, lowered his helmet. And it was funny. He got the fine, $17,000 fine,
Yeah.
not Brisker. Um uh but um it was funny and not funny, haha, but if you watch that play again, afterwards they kept saying like, "Oh, he's questionable to come back, questionable to come back." Watch that play again. Was his name Tommy Tremble? That dude
Hmm.
was unconscious when he hit the ground. Like when
Yeah, he
he got hit,
was.
his arms just like arms and legs just fell like rag dolls, and he was out. And I was like, "How the hell that guy was out? How are you going to say he's questionable to come back?"
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely tell something was wrong there because not only, him, I mean, he was unconscious on the field, but Brisker, whenever he makes a big play, he kind of does that bird flutter thing. When he didn't do that, it was almost kind of an indicator that there was something up there. But compare that to today when Kyler Gordon went out. They ruled him out like almost immediately.
Yeah. Um, I'm here for trying to bring more safety to the players.
Oh yeah, I mean, we know more than ever the consequences of CTE and other injuries, and you have to. You have to protect your players as best you can. And I know it's hard. It's a violent sport. It really, really is. But it's just always unfortunate when you see things like that happen, even though they happen all the time, because it is so easy for us to watch on television or in a stadium as fans say, oh, why aren't they doing this, this, and this? But they're the ones out there getting smashed in the head at high speeds. I couldn't imagine.
Oh, yeah, absolutely not. Um, I mean, how could you, unless you did it, how do you imagine just getting hit by somebody so big? Like I'm a bigger dude, and when I played football in high school, um, there was a guy, a running back on our team that ended up playing Division I football,
Oh,
and
really?
yeah, I played for Northern Illinois, um, and uh, he he was a big dude, and we were holding. I was holding the the bags, and we were just running through plays, but we were running through full speed because the offensive players had pads on. Um, but there was no tackling. You were just using the pads, and he hit me so hard, I went airborne, and he wasn't even going full speed by any stretch. And he hit, I went flying. He went flying because he hit me so hard, and it was just like he went through me like hot knife through butter. And I was like, all I could think of is when I got up, I'm like, did I hurt you? You okay? And he just started laughing. Uh, but I was like, I can't imagine a guy who is bigger and stronger and faster than that guy just demolishing into me. I can't even fathom that.
Yeah, I certainly couldn't. No way. And those are NFL players doing that.
Yeah, it's just wild.
Jeez. On a
I,
lighter note, though, did you have your victory pizza?
I didn't. Did you have Victory Pizza?
No, you know what I had? I had Victory Buffalo Chicken Wrap because last night my friends and I went out to dinner. And long story short, there was a little mix up with the order, and somebody ordered buffalo chicken mac, and they misheard it as buffalo chicken wrap. So they brought this buffalo chicken wrap, and my friend didn't want it. He got the mac instead eventually, but he's like, "Hey, you want this buffalo chicken wrap? There's some fries too." I said, "Yeah, got a to go container." And as soon as the final kneel down happened and they met at center field to try to congratulate each other and whatnot, I immediately went to the fridge, warmed up my fries, and ate my buffalo chicken wrap. And it was great. It was 11:30. 11:30. None of the other games have started yet. I'm sitting in front of my computer and TV eating a buffalo chicken wrap with the Bears having already won a big game. It was great.
That's nice. I liked this time starting early. It was nice. Wake up in my jammies, hop on the couch, put a blankie over me, and just, you know, uh, watch the game, and it's over before lunchtime.
You know what's really funny is I was streaming at the meantime. The church I go to, they stream their services online. So in commercial breaks, I was catching a little bit of the service because those commercial breaks are kind of long now because of all the advertising revenue. So I was just sitting there at my desk with my TV next to it, going back and forth during commercial break, then back to the game, back to the service commercial break, back to the game. And I made the declaration that no matter what, I was saving the meal until after the game was over. And I also woke up too, literally right as they were singing the anthems. So the timing all worked out great. I'm just
Nice.
sorry you didn't have victory pizza.
I know. I should have got Victory Pizza.
You know what you should have done? You should have had like a 6 foot radius pizza, just a massive, obnoxious pizza after this win. And then you could have been like Uncle Buck with a shovel and like just cutting it into the four big pieces. And there you are, just lifting one of the pieces with both arms and just, arm, arm. That's what you should have done. Maybe for another time, but it's just funny because every time you say, "Oh, I cut my pizza into fours," I just picture the biggest obnoxious looking like quarters of pizza that you're just sitting there and just eating.
Oh, it's good that way.
Well,
Uh,
I'll try it at some point. I can't knock it until I try it. I'm sure it's great. It's just kind of funny.
and I do want to talk about the merits of Cheetos mac and cheese, the with the green box.
Yeah, I need to try that. Mm.
Uh, it is it is good. It's the jalapeno one, so it's got a little bit of kick to it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's super good. And the other like so there's three Cheetos mac and cheese flavors. There's like bold and cheesy, and that one I don't. It's a weird cheese flavor. I don't really like it. There's the um flamin' hot, which tastes good, but it's red. I don't want red mac and cheese.
Right, right.
Um, so I choose not to get that one. I have gotten it before, but I choose not to. Um, and but the other one, it's got a little bit of a kick to it, and it is just chef's kiss. It's so good.
Yeah, it comes in the green bag, right?
It's yeah, it's a green box.
Yeah, those are the regular jalapeno Cheetos. I do like those very, very much. Um, you know what I did like? You speak of Flamin' Hot, which is the classic flavor. Even though it's not the original, it's kind of like the beloved flavor. At my previous job, there was a vending machine in the basement and it had flaming hot fries. So it was the flaming hot Cheetos, but in fry form. And, the bag has Chester Cheetah holding like a thing of fries. And, they were thin fry shaped, kind of like maybe the thickness around of a McDonald's fry and the length of a McDonald's fry. But obviously, it's like really light, when those like puffy light chips are really light in the
Hmm.
fry shape. Oh, there was a point where I was buying a bag of those like every day. Just I made sure that I had my dollar in my pocket so I could go downstairs all the way down to the office basement just to get some freaking Cheetos fries. We were on like the sixth floor. It was a taller office building, so I'd be like, all right, taking a break, 2 o'clock, go down on the elevator all the way down to the basement just to that corner vending machine and get some fries. Those Cheetos fries.
Oh, Cheetos fries sound so good.
Ah, they're delicious. Maybe I'm gonna visit that old that old office building just to get those fries. That office building's actually on my way to my current job's office building. It's not far from it at all, actually. I pass by it every day. The building I currently work in is much nicer than the old one. The old one was just kind of your standard regular office building, but it had that vending machine and it was great. It also had a vending machine with both Coke and Pepsi and grape soda. And that, to me, that means a lot. If you know me, I love both Coke and Pepsi and grape soda on top of that. So that was kind of nice. Those two vending machines are right next to each other. And I'm fairly certain I was like one of the only people to go down there to get that, but I didn't give a crap. That
Uh,
vending machine was so old, it had like the 1990s logo versions of like all the sodas and all the chips.
I haven't worked anywhere that's had a good vending machine in a long time.
As nice as my current office building is, they don't have a vending machine. Now, the actual company I work for, we have a lot of snacks in the kitchen and they got some good snacks in there. Uh, but there are some things they don't have that you could get from a typical vending machine that I wouldn't mind. At the same time, though, I do kind of save money because I could just have the snacks in my office no matter what. And even if they're not all the ones that I want from a vending machine, they're still pretty good. But if I just went in one Monday and I saw the snack area in my kitchen and I saw Cheetos fries, the whole office would be like, who's like orgasming in here?
Uh, oh, Alex.
Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, we supplied them with Cheetos fries. He's going nuts. He's going nuts in there. Just stay away for a few minutes.
Just everybody give him some space.
Yeah. Stay at your desk, give him some space. You'll be able to go back in the kitchen eventually. But
Uh, so this Bears team has a bye this week or this coming week, which I think is good. Um, and then uh, who is coming out of the bye? I lost my schedule here.
oh, we have the Commanders in
Man,
Washington. That's gonna
that
be a tough one.
that's going to be a tough one. I mean, they got they got I think manhandled a little bit today by Baltimore, but I have a feeling that game is going to get flexed.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got the two rookie quarterbacks, picks 1 and 2. They're both playing really well. There's going to be a lot of narratives, some very annoying coming out of it. And you know what? They might have lost today. Ravens are a good team. They are probably a top, maybe even a top two next to the Chiefs. They might be number two favorite to go to the Super Bowl in the AFC. If not them, the Bills, they'd probably be three then, but they're a top favorite to go to the Super Bowl, not named the Chiefs in the AFC. They're a good team.
They are a good team. Is they have not been playing their best football by any stretch. Um, eh, but they're such a well-coached team.
The last few
Um,
weeks, though, they're looking much better.
yeah, so it's gonna be. I mean, that team is tough because of Derrick Henry and uh, but Washington, watching them, they're they're a really solid team. They remind me a lot of last year's Texans, um,
Good
wh
comp.
where you see the foundations for a good team. They do have some holes. Uh, you know, you they're not gonna you know beat the top teams, but they're gonna at least play them tough. And there's still some holes, but they play hard, and good quarterback play overcomes a lot of it. I still think CJ Stroud is better than Jaden Daniels, and that's not a knock. Um, but uh, like I said, is when the Bears play them, they're going to have to, you know, it, I don't think they have to worry about playing the full field. Is is Jaden Daniels really plays half the field? And maybe by that point they start to expand it a little bit as he's played half a season. But um, you know, you're you're gonna have to look, you're gonna have to make him beat you with both sides of the field.
Right. Exactly. That's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough game, but you know, we'll see. We'll see how healed we are. It would be really ideal to have Jaquan Brisker back. I think we will. Kyler Gordon, we'll see. Hopefully, have Tyreek Stevenson back because that'll be important.
Oh, absolutely. If we're healthy, uh, I think the Bears probably win this game. Um, I'm not I'm not super concerned about Washington's defense because they lost they lost one of their best defensive linemen today to an injury. Um, I don't know how long he's going to be out, but um, that's going to hurt them. And I'm hoping we see a Montez Sweat revenge game.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Um,
I didn't even think of that.
we don't, as Bears fans, we don't get a lot of revenge games. The revenge games happen against us.
I was going to say it's usually the other way around.
Like we saw Roy Robertson Harris have a good game today against us.
He did, and I completely forgot he was on the Jaguars and he got one of those sacks. I'm like, "Oh yeah, he's on the Jags now." Okay.
Uh, but should we talk Blackhawks?
Yes, we should. Yes, we should.
Did you get your antenna working?
No, no. I I saw the first game because it was on ESPN.
Hmm.
I was out with friends Friday night, so I missed that, but I followed. I saw them losing overtime on my phone. And then on Saturday, I was listening. I was out, but I got home in time for the game because the game was late. It was in Edmonton. I put it on the radio. So I listened to John Weideman and Troy Murray, but I watched all the highlights. I saw the goals and ooh, Connor Bedard making me feel things.
I bought an antenna and
I'm holding out.
I was like, you know what? I spent I think $40 on it and I use YouTube TV. And from what I've heard, I think you have Comcast, right?
Yes, Xfinity. Yeah.
Um, Comcast and Xfinity might get it, but I don't think YouTube TV will. From my
Yeah,
understanding, is
I don't think so.
that's been like their thing is to keep it low price. They don't want any regional sports networks because they're expensive. They add they add several dollars per member per month. So I think that's been their whole thing is like, nah, we're not going to. So why add this? So I'm not expecting it. Also with YouTube TV, I don't get Me TV, um, which I don't particularly care about, except that's where Sven Gulli is. Uh,
That's where I watch Stooge-a-Palooza whenever I'm home on a Saturday night.
so I was like, you know what? I'm like, why bitch and complain? I'm just gonna buy the stupid antenna. So I have an 86-inch TV with an antenna hooked up to it. And it's I put the antenna in the window because the TV's in the living room and I just run it to the window and it was pretty easy to install. And I've got so many channels that I didn't know existed on this antenna. Um, there's like multiple old, there's like a Westerns channel. There's like uh uh another station that's like,
Westerns, so like, do they only show like Clint Eastwood and John Wayne movies?
I mean that type of thing. There's like Me TV, there's like multiple versions of Me TV. There's like a one that's all cartoons, like old cartoons. Um, and there's another
Rocky and
one
Bullwinkle.
that there was like the Flintstones and the Jetsons and like I think Thundercats were on there. There was a lot of old cartoons, which was cool. And then there was another station that was playing just old TV shows, kind of like Me TV, but it was a different. It was like the I forget who it was. It was like some old TV show creator, Norman Lear. It was like the Norman Lear station, and they were just like had all these old Norman Lear shows, um and there I got two different versions of the was it CH uh SN whatever.
The
uh
Chicago Sports Network.
yeah, so there's two different versions of it, and so I've got that, and it comes in nice and clear, and I get the all the regular TV stations, and um so it's working out well, except I couldn't watch the first game because it was my daughter's birthday party. um and then I ended up we went out to dinner afterwards and came home, and everyone was tired, and I went to go see Terrifier 3 in the movie theater, uh which was it was something. um but yeah, for the rest of the games I will have that antenna working overtime.
See, I think the Chicago Sports Network had just wanted fans to experience sports the way our parents and grandparents watch sports with the antenna. You thought rabbit ears and antennas were a thing of the past? Ha, guess what? What's
I
next? You can only watch a channel on a tube square ratio TV.
it I don't have a bunny ears. It's a little plastic box that it sits in the window. um and it's digital, so it's actually nice. You get high def. um you don't have to move it around. uh I just had to I went to a website. It told me what channels I would get based on my address, which is wild. um so I'm fine with it. It was I think $40 was a fine investment, better than paying marquee $20 a month.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
I'm shocked that the Cubs didn't try to pull in the all the other sports teams to marquee and just keep pushing the marquee network like that.
I'm sure they might have tried, but do you think Jerry Reinsdorf was going to allow that to happen with the Bulls?
Probably not.
Yeah, so, and I think it's like the Blackhawks and the Bulls kind of have their joint ventures, and they were all on that one network together. So it's kind of sad though, because when you flip channels, when I go to channel 200 where NBC used to be, it just says channel no longer up. It's like, oh, that's sad.
Womp womp.
I mean, I go back to a kid in the mid 2000s watching the Cubs and the Blackhawks and the Bulls and the Bears post-game show when it was Comcast Sportsnet, then it became NBC Sportsnet. A lot of good memories on that channel. And obviously, you had the Blackhawks winning those Stanley Cups, the Cubs World Series. I think even the Sox World Series, it was like the first year of CSN, NBC Sportsnet in Chicago was 2005 that year. So you had a lot of good memories. So RIP, RIP NBC/Comcast Sportsnet, Chicago.
um let's see. But yeah, the Blackhawks, that first game looked bad. That that was rough.
The first period in particular was god awful. They picked up the pace a little bit later in the game. They just
They,
couldn't get that tying goal.
they couldn't they have a couple crossbars.
Couple crossbars, guy made a couple of good saves, but you know what? You also dug yourself a 3-0 hole. So,
Yeah, so you saw, and they were able to keep scoring, and it just, I mean, the score probably looked worse than it was, but
yes.
that first period was so bad, and you just, even though you started playing better later, it didn't show on that scoreboard at all. Um, Game two against Winnipeg, uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you got a point out of that, but that one sort of hurt.
You were a minute away from getting two.
Yeah. Um, and that's been for how many years now, is the very end of periods been
It's
Uh,
always when they give up the goals. Yeah.
it's been such a nightmare. This team just can't stay or play it all the way through. So that one really hurt. And I think the pressure was starting to get them a little bit because with all the new people, and I'm sure their coach is starting to feel a little bit of the hot seat because I think as an organization, the Blackhawks are expecting to take a big step forward. And even a big step forward is not putting them in the playoffs, but you know, they can't be a bottom feeder again.
No, you can't. You have to be more respectable and give the Blackhawks some credit for what they did in Edmonton. They needed to go out there, play a good game, get a few points, and they did. They needed that badly.
Yeah. Uh, but you coming to play the Oilers, I was like, man, this is not the team you want to be playing when you're sort of desperate for a win.
No.
And the Blackhawks came right out and took it to them. And I know there's probably some sort of, hangover from last season with the Oilers, but it doesn't matter, right? That team is stacked. And
And you were on the road in Edmonton.
yeah, so I I have to hand it to the Blackhawks. Um, you're seeing them play so much better. Uh, and you're seeing Maroon be a net front presence, and he's got physical and a veteran savvy,
Pushing guys into the bench.
pushing guys into the bench. Um, you're seeing Connor Bedard take, have that sophomore season where he's playing really well.
His first goal of the season against the Oilers, that was a wicked shot. Just an absolute laser.
Yeah. Um, but it was so nice to see them come out and just absolutely dominate and play tough all the way through. And um, I'm starting to see this team because it takes time to figure out some of these lines, and especially when the preseason for the NHL is not very long. You don't get very many games, and you got to work through these lines and figure out who's going to be the best with Bedard because that's obviously the most important line, and who's going to be that fourth fourth line that gives you that physical boost. Uh, and we're it's going to take time with this team that's a lot of new faces to figure out who those lines are and who's going to perform the best.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're seeing some comfort with Teuvo Teravainen coming back. Obviously, he's a former Hawk, but the team was completely different back in the day. So he had a really nice night in Edmonton. That was good for him. And I think you're also going to see some moments where you just don't connect on all the passes. But once you start seeing that more, just without the entire throughout the entire season, you're going to see that click a little bit better with some of the veterans you have because of how experienced they are. That's why you brought some of those guys in. So seeing Teuvo get off to a good start really helps.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. One thing I'm really bummed about is a game that I had circled uh, during preseason was this coming Thursday. I wanted to see Connor Bedard versus Macklin Celebrini, and looks like we're not going to because Macklin already got hurt,
Yeah.
and he was looking good. He was looking really good. and so it stinks that he got hurt. Um, I would have liked to have seen, the two future faces of the NHL facing off against each other.
And it would have been the home opener too. You would have seen that matchup.
Yeah. Um, but I like the way that they've starting to play. Um, I still, you're starting to see where as a team that's growing, you're gonna need to improve that goalie uh performance long term.
100%.
Uh,
Absolute. I mean, Peter Mrazek, for
no,
what
no,
the team,
yeah, nothing bad against him. He's been perfect for where they are and what they've needed now.
but you're not winning a Stanley Cup with him in net.
No, you need to improve the goal play, and you saw that especially in that first game where he was just overmatched. Um,
Yeah, he had a tough one on the opener, but rebounded nicely last night.
oh yeah, absolutely rebounded very nicely. But he's a perfectly fine goalie. But as you said, he's not going to win you a Stanley Cup. And as this team gets better and better, you're going to have to find that goalie. You're going to have to find your Bobrovsky. You're going to have to find that goalie that can stand on his head and carry you when uh your D is out of position or um when the offense is struggling.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I do want to give him credit, even though I don't know how sustainable it is. But shout out to Arvid Soderblom for having a really, really good game in Winnipeg. It stinks that they couldn't win that for him.
Right.
But again, I Soderblom's not a guy we're not going to likely be relying on long term. Once they bring the guy back from injury that they got from Winnipeg, you'll imagine he's going to slot in there. But we're, I think, some time away from that.
They've got some goaltenders in their system. They've just got to hustle it up to get them up to speed and get them seasoned because hey, it's an art form developing goalies.
It is. And you know what? The Blackhawks have had some success at it. Look what they did with Corey Crawford.
Um, yeah. Oh yeah. Corey Crawford is just a success story because he wasn't the superstar down in the farm system.
No.
And he came up and we saw what he did. Multiple Stanley Cup winner and uh, one of the faces of a dynasty.
Yeah, and it's not like, oh, he was just winning because the team in front of him. Like, no, he was legitimately a good goaltender. Probably one of the most underrated goaltenders in the NHL.
So it's I'm hoping for one of those type of success stories where you just have one of these guys that they've got down in the farm system that just comes through in a year or two and and becomes you know the face of this franchise, as far as uh
As far as goaltending's go,
goaltending goes, just be the guy.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. We've gone through several guys over the past few years, ever since Crawford was no longer around. We looked at Colin Delia, that didn't work out. We tried guys like Malcolm Subban, that didn't really work out. You had a couple veterans come in and out, Cam Ward, you got Peter Mrazek now. So, yeah, need to find that dude.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've got to find that dude. You've got to find your guy. And there's been teams that have been successful at bringing in a veteran goalie and putting a defense around him. But I it's I just think it's much more important to develop that goalie and bring him up from your farm system and develop him and get him to be that dude. It's you know I think that's the way to go.
Hmm. For sure.
Because if you've got an excellent goaltender, you normally don't let him go. The guys you're letting go are the guys that uh teams are willing to let go.
Right, right.
And those guys in historically there's been guys that have gone on to play really well and win Stanley Cups, but then on the other side you get the Robin Lehners,
Yeah,
which
right.
which was a bullet that the Blackhawks dodged.
I almost forgot about that. I saw Robin Leonard make like one of the best saves I've ever seen. It was a game against the Coyotes, and the way he just slid across and made this glove save while he was like falling down. One of the best saves, probably the best save I've ever seen. But boy, that's a core memory.
I totally forgot about him until I saw a picture of him online, and I was like, "Oh my God, I forgot all about Robin Leonard."
Because he went to the Golden Knights and then
Yeah.
kind of just disappeared.
Um, didn't he have some like legal and personal issues?
I know he was kind of battling some mental health, but there could be more that I just don't know about. Um, I just hadn't followed him nearly as much since he left the Blackhawks, so I'm not sure. But I just remember him being on the Golden Knights after, and that was kind of it. I'd have to Google him.
Oh, Robin Leonard. But yeah, I'm excited. The Blackhawks, they've got Calgary coming up next game, and that should be another nice challenge. Um, Calgary's another good team. Uh, and it's, I think getting some of these challenges in early shows you it's a little bit of a measuring stick of where you are versus where you were last year.
Yeah, for sure. And again, when you go on the road like this on the West Coast, even if the team isn't nearly as good, I think they're good tests for young teams like this. You
Oh,
know, you're
absolutely.
way out of your normal rhythm and you're on the West Coast and Calgary's you're up in Canada, up north, really, not really West Coast, but very different than what you're used to.
Yeah, and then when you put it into perspective of, you don't know right off the bat who's going to, who was good last year and you could project who's going to be good this year, but you don't know until you get a good number of games in. Um, but the Jets, the Jets have the best record in the NHL right now, undefeated, um, tied with Utah. So Utah is looking really good. The Jets are looking really good, and you should have beat the Jets. Um, the Oilers are the best team in the NHL last year, and you kicked their ass. So you're not playing slouches to start off. Calgary, Calgary is 2-0 right now. They were a good team last year. So the teams you're facing until your home opener were tough teams, and you're hanging your own, or uh, you're fighting in there, and you're staying in these games, and that's a good measuring stick for this team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
One thing I wanted to bring up, just have you been watching these baseball playoffs?
Bits and pieces. This has been a great postseason.
It has. You have seen a little bit of everything. You have seen teams with epic comebacks. Epic comebacks. You had the San Diego Padres have a stranglehold on the Dodgers, and the Dodgers is just be like, we're going to shut you out for the next 24 innings, and we're going to come back and win this series. You had a great series between the Tigers and the Guardians. And while I was kind of rooting for the Tigers to win, at the end of the day, man, that was a great series. The Tigers went on a hell of a run. The Guardians were just a little bit better, but a 5 game set back and forth. You saw Tariq Skubal throw some good innings, and obviously I think he got a little tired at the end there. You saw the underrated Jose Ramirez hit some bombs. You saw some really good clutch hitting from Kerry Carpenter off Emmanuel Clase. That was great. I mean, that was a great series to watch. And then here are who looked like for much of the season to be the favorites, not named the Dodgers and the NL and the Phillies. The Mets just continued to ride, took down the Phillies in 4 games. The
What was
Lindor Grand
wild
Slam, just
and
crazy.
is I believe every game the Mets have played so far, uh, the team that was winning going into the seventh inning didn't win the game.
That's crazy.
It's a bit like a late lead change in every game that they played. But that team is playing fantastic. Lindor is carrying that team on his back, and I love it because there are like no matter who goes to the World Series, there's going to be uh, a a team with some sort of historical relevance in the World Series. It's not going to be like, you know, a Tampa Bay or a Marlins or it's, you know,
Or a Diamondbacks
yeah,
or
it's we like the AL, we're guaranteed because like I kind of was hoping for the Tigers as well, just because that the Tigers and Yankees is a very old, rivalry. I mean, I guess the Guardians, this, name change, but that's like sort of one. But and Dodgers are, big time old school franchise, and the Mets are a big New York team. Um, I think I think MLB and the TV networks are probably salivating that they've got no matter what happens, they're going to have some sort of good rivalry because if the Yankees make it, obviously it's the Yankees. Uh, if Cleveland makes it, they're going to be selling that as the the Guardians, haven't won, and
right.
that's
They're the longest drought.
the longest drought. Um, and if the Mets make it, that's a New York team. That's huge. And if the Dodgers make it, it's the Dodgers. They're the and I think that, I know you want an all New York World Series. We've seen one before. I want a Dodgers Yankees World Series at this point.
Well, you know who else would like that? The executives at Fox.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They would
Ratings bonanza.
like you would just see them. Like, have you ever seen that video the of Bill Gates and the Microsoft people doing the dance when they at their one of their press conferences where they're all doing the white people dance? And
Yes.
I'm just picturing all of the TV executives dancing like that if the Yankees and the Dodgers make the World Series.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can picture that right now, and it's spot on.
Oh
Absolutely
yeah.
spot on.
They're going to be giddy at the TV ratings of that because everybody's going to tune in. You know, Aaron Judge versus Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, that will be a matchup that people would just eat up. It's as much as many people don't want to root for either team, that would be must-see TV.
Oh,
It really
absolutely.
would.
Yeah. I obviously would prefer Cleveland in there because I'm at this point, if you're asking me who I would want to win, it's going to be Cleveland. Um,
Fair.
I don't like the other three teams, but no matter who makes it, it's going to be a really fun World Series.
Big time.
Um, I'm just it based. This has been take away my feelings as a Cubs fan of them not being in it. This has been the best postseason in a long time, top to
Yeah.
bottom.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree.
Um, I haven't liked all of the results. I was rooting for the Orioles and they got bounced quick. I was rooting for the Padres. They got bounced by the Dodgers, um, which was a heated battle.
Very, a lot of emotions, a lot of bad blood, so to speak. But Dodgers came out on top.
Yeah, so yeah, so now I'm down to sorry Cleveland, you're gonna get my bad juju. I'm rooting for you.
Bad juju. You're doing like a dance with like a bell. Ding, 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 ding.
Uh yeah, so I I don't know. I have no idea who's gonna win. Like it's if you told me any of these four teams win, I would not be shocked. The Mets seem like they're the hottest team.
Now trailing
Uh
the Dodgers right now.
yeah, but
But
it's
it's
a
only
long
game one.
it's a long series. Um but it's gonna be exciting and I'm here for it.
Yeah, me too. And like I said, like you said too, I am still a little salty the Cubs are not part of this equation, but I'll at least enjoy some exciting baseball while I can.
Uh, gotta enjoy it somehow.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. That will grow the show. Follow us on social media uh, at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter/X, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears! Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.